The Prime Minister has said we're in a hurry. Why is it so difficult for a compact country like Singapore, digitally connected, to get to the smart nation status? Why are we facing difficulties and challenges?
Well, first, we're living in a revolution. The advent, pervasive computing, massive broadband connectivity, mobile connectivity, AI, robotics, genomics, this is a revolution. And if we don't get there ahead of the curve, we're going to be swamped. Fortunately, Singapore is starting from a position of strength. We've got a sophisticated, demanding, digital literate population. We've got more handphones, smartphones than people. We've got an education system that has emphasized science and tech. So we can get onto it, but we need to move faster. And that's
why aren't we fast enough? I mean, the Prime Minister brought up the example of China, a cashless society. We're not there yet. Why are we even lagging behind the likes of China?
There is a danger of complacency in any place which is apparently efficient and where things work too well. And we need to get out of that. If you look at this, I will offer you 3 levels of looking at it. First is just look at it at the human quality level, of life level. Then enterprise efficacy. Third, opportunity. Let's deal with the first one. Whatever is created, whatever services, whatever devices, is it user-friendly? Is it convenient? Is it accessible to all age groups? Does it address very real human needs to communicate, to socialize? So that's one level. Does it improve the quality of life? And the point is there's a lot more that can be done to make services more accessible, more fun, more entertaining, more relevant. The next level, however, is harder, and that is at enterprise efficacy, meaning are our companies inventing stuff which makes them more competitive, more innovative, more relevant? Where do they stand globally? How are we using our resources? Are we optimizing the way we produce things? Are we in the game? And nowadays, because of globalization, it's not enough to be competitive in Singapore. You've got to be competitive worldwide. So that's at enterprise level. But there's a more fundamental level, and that's why we're really chasing this. And this is about opportunity. We live in a world where the way value is created, the way work is organized, the way our societies communicate, mobilize, transform ourselves is all being changed. If we don't address this, you will see the danger of the middle class being hollowed out, of jobs being lost. So it's really about the distribution of opportunities. And that's why we're so obsessed about education and skills future. You see, the point is, there are a whole lot of new jobs being created. But do you have people with the right skills? Can you match your own population with the new jobs that have been created?
So, Minister, where are we in this digital transformation? Are we at risk of not meeting the 2025 Smart Nation target?
We are at risk if we are complacent and if we go too slowly. And the Prime Minister has said we're going to double down and we're going to ramp up the rate of change. And this has to be done. There's no way around that.
Legislation is important. And there seems to be a lag, that legislation is lagging behind innovation. I know Singapore has somewhat addressed that. I mean, it brought down, in terms of rental housing to 3 months versus 6 months before, yet it's not addressing platforms like Airbnb, for instance. Is legislation lagging behind from your point of view?
Actually, legislation is not the key thing. There are several things which governments can do. For instance, research and development is a primary role of government. In our case, we've set aside $19 billion for the next 5 years. The next thing, infrastructure. In our case, we've got fiber in every home, in every office. In fact, 2 fibers in every home. We've got the world's fastest broadband. We're working on mobile connectivity. The hardware layer is almost the easy part. But it's the software layer. And that's why we are working in overnight on 3 critical platforms. E-payments, digital ID, and when I say digital ID, secure digital ID, which incorporates biometrics and PKI, public key infrastructure, so that you can have presence-less, paperless, and cashless transactions.
You've had conversations with your counterpart in the U.S. Is
Yes.
there a shift in U.S. commitment towards Asia? Do you get a sense of that?
Well, I think the U.S. is undergoing a period of anxiety. In fact, the first sign of a society that is probably not keeping up with the digital revolution is when middle-class wages are squeezed and middle-class jobs are being eroded. This is a clear warning sign. The problem, however, is in the reaction. And I want to make this point. Don't blame trade. The real game in town is the digital revolution and the fact that new jobs are being created and you need new skills and you need to train people for that. So the worst thing that would happen now is a trade war. I'll give you another recipe which is a dead end, which is don't onshore obsolete jobs. You need to be looking where the new jobs are being created, where the new ways of creating value and distributing opportunities and preparing your people for that. In Singapore, we're focused on education, skills future, putting money in people's accounts so they can go for relevant causes, upgrade skills, enhance productivity. It's hard work, it's not glamorous work, it's not a quick fix, but that's where the real solution is. So I'm most worried about a trade war.
Geopolitics have taken over the headlines, and looking at the South China Sea, for instance, we've seen how Vietnam's pulling back intensive drilling, and presumably because of the pressure from China. Also, the Philippines is pretty much agreed to join joint drilling with China as well. Is there a sense that countries are pulling back from challenging China?
Well, I would take a step back. The key strategic trend is that we're moving to a multipolar world. And it's not just the United States, it's not just China, but it's India, it's Europe, South America, and Africa. First point. Second point is trade. The South China Sea is so important because $5 trillion worth of trade flows through that. And frankly, I think the risk of a war is very low, but that's not what I'm worried about. Just the hint of tension raises risk premiums, raises insurance premiums, affects trade. We need to have peace and stability so that trade can continue. The third point is that never before in human history have China and the US, two superpowers, been so intertwined. China is the US largest trading partner. China also happens to hold is the largest single holder of US Treasury bonds. Never before in history have two powers been so intertwined. This is completely different from the Iron Curtain and the very limited interaction between the USSR and America 50 years ago. So we're in a different world. We need cool heads to prevail. We need to stop blaming trade. We need to stop trying to onshore obsolete jobs. We need to work together. We need to create a zone of interdependence, mutual investment, and then reap the fruits of this technological and digital revolution.